After the conclusion of the local kick-off tournament, we caught up with OFM sports editor and Cheetah Chase regular Morgan Piek to hear his thoughts on playing without supporters, the current crop of players and the season past.
There were a couple of really good performances during this Super Rugby Unlocked series, especially in the initial phases. They definitely took a knock when Morgan Piek got injured 15 minutes into that Bulls game, and it had quite a big knock-on effect, and sadly they just weren't able to recover. But then again, they also did play against a couple of really strong teams. They beat the Bulls. That is something they should be proud of. It's the only team that actually beat the Bulls, and a couple of players really did come to the fore. There were a few guys that really stood out to me, and there's a solid foundation laid. Remember, halfway through the Currie Cup, they started losing key players like a Waldsteenkamp, Tian Skuman at fly half, and that makes a big difference. All of a sudden you have Reinhard Fortuin brought in, and good player, and he's shown his potential, but to be thrust in, make your debut at senior level, it was a big step up he had to make, and I think he started getting it right towards the back end of this recent kick-off preparation series that they played. Andile and Silas really stood out for me. Frans Steyn, of course, we can write books about what he's done for Cheetahs rugby in a short period of time. Vilma Noldi has been playing some good rugby for me. A few of the youngsters, George Cornier really did well for me. A young player, plays with a lot of heart. Even Jock Potchefstroom did in that one game he played. Really played a good game for me, and I would actually like to see him play more rugby at the Cheetahs. I know he's got a one-year contract, and it might be nice to see that contract being extended. And, you know, people don't like giving this man as much credit as he deserves, but Clayton Blommetjies has been season in, season out, one of those guys that turns up, he performs. Yeah, he might have made one or two silly mistakes in the past, but you really miss the guy when he's not on the field. And especially when you don't have spectators in attendance now, you can actually hear how much that man communicates with the rest of his team on the field, and it's impressive to hear how he dictates the game from the back, right at the back, and he's calling the shots. Wonderful player. The Bulls game definitely stood out for me, beating the Bulls in that second game of the Super Rugby Unlocked series. And then I'm going to have to say this last game against the EP Elephants. Yes, the EP Elephants are a bunch of amateurs that were playing under difficult circumstances, but is there one game where they really gelled for me as a team? Was it really truly that one game where we saw champagne rugby that Free State Rugby is renowned for, and they can take a lot out of that game heading forward. So yeah, I would say take that EP game, build on that. It was also a bunch of youngsters, second string players that played in the game. Marcel Miller, 10 minutes into his debut, scored 2 tries. You can't complain about a brace of tries 10 minutes into your debut. I think by now, the teams are quite used to not having spectators in attendance. Ultimately, I do think that when you are playing in such a zone that it becomes white noise, the crowd. And speaking to one of the players before their first game without a crowd, they said there's a plus and a negative, and the plus for him was that the guys can actually hear each other communicate in the field now. I think in a tight match like a semi-final, the crowd can really get behind them, especially if it comes to a line-out drive or something like that. They've said that in the past where that definitely does a boost. But I think by now they are so used to it, and it's actually getting back down to your roots of rugby. You know, when you were in school, it was normally quiet, although school rugby is a lot more popular now, but the faithful are definitely itching. Us media are also itching to get back to the game. It's a hassle getting into rugby, because we've also got a bit of a brotherhood that goes in the media, and to be able to see these guys is special. So I think the crowds are itching to get back in, the faithful, as you call it, and everybody just wants to be part of sports again. And I have this feeling that when everything does eventually open up again, we're going to start seeing bigger crowds than what came in the past. I think we got so spoilt with the amount of rugby we saw that we took it for granted. And I think, you know, people are going to appreciate what comes their way now. Touch wood if it opens. Sounds like the Ministry of Sport is working on something like that to get crowds, albeit limited crowds, back into games.
Wow!